Doubleheader, baby.
I think it's our first doubleheader. It might be our second, but now I think back to back, it's our first, man.
Yeah, man. And it's an early show. We're late for some that are watching across the pond.
People are very excited. See a lot of people from across the pond. Very, very excited to be here. Especially some of them haven't been able to join us in so long, so we just don't do morning shows.
Yeah, man. So hey, you guys know the drill. Drop in where you're watching from. This is a big one for us, Caleb. This is the 1 year, baby. 1 year.
1 year, man. It's crazy how much time has passed, man. It really has. It's 365 days and 34 episodes.
Yep, this is episode 34, and it's going to be a good one. I'm pretty fired up, man. That intro just kind of gets me fired up every single time. So
it's a dance party, man.
Yeah.
So I was telling our guests, I said, dance party.
So with that being said, everybody knows that this is a podcast for the fans, by the fans. Caleb has put together something very special for our intro video today. Caleb, do you want to bring it in? Do you want to let people know what's going on?
Oh yeah. Guys, it's our 1 year anniversary. It's time to kind of just take it back, and those who are just joining us for the first time today, let's take it back and show you guys what we've been about. It's been an amazing year with you guys. We're going for year 2. And it's really just been really exciting. So let's just do this little video. This is kind of a tribute to the show, and you guys enjoy. And also a guest reveal.
Yeah, episode 34 of the Freaking Frack Show, podcast for the fans, by the fans. We love you guys. You're tuned in to the first episode, the pilot run for the Freaking Frack Show. My name is Matthew Taylor.
And I'm Caleb Bryan.
To be a test run for our first podcast together.
All right, guys, you're watching the Freaking Frack Show podcast for the fans, by the fans. What?
We love you guys.
Gotta go.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Jeff Timmons from the group 98 Degrees. Hey, what's up, guys? Greg Raposo here. Just wanted to let you know, March 24th, I'm going to be hanging out on the Freaking Frack Show with my friends Matt and Caleb.
Yeah.
Oh.
I watched it enough that I'm immune.
Oh my goodness gracious, man.
There's a lot of time editing, putting that together, so I had a lot more time to cry than do anything else,
Man, that let's get into the episode, Caleb.
Let's do
Who
it,
we
man.
having on? Bring her on.
Guys. Super excited. Oh, look, someone said you're crying.
No, I'm not crying. You're crying.
Guys, we have Miss Andi coming on this show. We're super excited because this is a whole kind of different person to bring onto the show. This is what we're all about, giving people platforms, introducing people to you guys. And let's bring her on, man.
Andi with Remix PR.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi, Andi.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing great.
Oh, don't cry. That was beautiful, by the way. Congratulations on your first year.
Thank you so much. It means the world to us to have you on for this big episode of ours, and that we've just we've touched a lot of people along the way, and they've done the same to us. So thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah,
today.
Absolutely. Today, I think we're all like in a different, it's 11 a.m. where we're at. So
yeah. So where are you? Where are you from?
Well, time between Miami and Destin, Florida. So I'm actually up in Panhandle area at the moment. It's 2 weeks down and 2 weeks up. So it's been a lot of back and forth over the past year, I guess now. Even for you guys, it's been a year since the pandemic started. It's been a year since a lot of things have changed. So
it appears like almost pretty much everything. I always tell people my routine has never changed. I'm still doing the things. Of course, we're not doing concerts. Of course, we're not doing a lot of things we love. And but we're just taking it day by day.
Yep, or step by step. Just kidding.
Oh, that was the best pun
ever. Had to put it in there. Had to do it.
I'm usually the pun guy, but that was incredible.
Yeah, no, good one. I love it.
I've learned from the masters over the years, so
Oh yeah.
Andy, we want to learn a little bit about you and something what you're building along the way. For people that may not know, can you give us a little background on yourself and what exactly Remix PR is and what you guys do?
Sure. So I actually started Remix PR as a side business when I was working at Live Nation, which I think everybody is pretty familiar with Live Nation. I actually started working for them full time at the end of 2016. I was working in, guest relations and doing their media stuff. And then I ended up moving into their digital publicity department and branding partnerships and, just starting to, expand my horizons from working, because prior to that, I had worked in the live event and convention industry. And, I'm very open about it. I had a business that failed when I was doing that. And it was a fun ride, but it just wasn't, it wasn't for me for so many reasons on personal and professional levels. So when I started Remix PR, it was mostly to do social media management and just to kind of have basically a side hustle. I was following the Gary Vee, hey, I got bills to pay. I know what I'm doing with social. Let me work with some real estate agents and some businesses. And in 2019, I went to Danny Wood from New Kids on the Block, and Danny and I have been friends for years. So I was like, hey, I think that we could do X, Y, and Z together. I gave him a full proposal and he was like, you know what, let's do it. So I started working full time for Danny through Remix PR. I guess it was the end of May by the time we did that in 2019. So Here we are 2 years later, and now we have a full digital PR firm. We do everything from social media management to, we do live streams, we do YouTube channels, we were doing digital before digital was necessary.
Yeah.
So we lucked out, and the timing of it was ideal. And now, we're very blessed to have a very unique client roster that we get to do a lot of really fun stuff with that's mostly digital. But, we also do tour management. We do live events when the world is normal. So
Wow. That's really awesome, though. Sounds like a job.
It's a lot of fun. And I tell everybody, I'm like, I left Live Nation in 2019, but I haven't entirely. I actually still do consulting for them. And it's, I'm very blessed to get to love what I do and wake up and, just be in love with going to work, essentially. So
that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, when Caleb reached out to me, he said, I think his exact words were, she was a fan first, and now she gets to do this as a career. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's what makes you different.
Yeah, and I say this all the time. I feel like if you're a fan as opposed to just being thrown into the mix, and I think that's basically true for a lot of us that work in the industry. As much as they see us as professionals and we're really good at what we do, a lot of the bigger companies and even some of the managers that you guys are familiar with, or the faces that are behind the bands, they were a fan at one point, or they became a fan, or they have other things in their careers that they have been into over the years, and they've been able to kind of put that into what they do now.
So what did you do at Live Nation before? Is it the same?
My job bounced around so much. It was kind of funny. I took a part-time job. It was ridiculous how it happened. I took a part-time job in December of 2016. I remember how it happened. I was like, okay, I'm going to work concerts for the year. That was the goal. So I was still working another part-time job, and I was just trying to, at the time, I was trying to get myself out of the hole that I had created trying to build a business that failed. So I took the job. I'm like, yeah, I'll do ticket taking and stuff. Well, as soon as they figured out I could do social media, they started moving me into that realm. So I was working part-time in guest relations, and then I would work part-time for social media. Then they moved me to branding and partnerships. And, that was where I learned the most, I think. And so we did everything from tour sponsorships to paid social media, basically working with a lot of the brands that would come to Live Nation just to basically work, those strategic partnerships and just make sure that it was the right fit for, different people and things of that nature. But then on top of it, I was also doing media production. So we were doing everything for the YouTube channel, and we were doing, promotional videos. And if you go to a concert and you see the opener, I was working in that department. I bounced around a lot. That's why I was so blessed when, I went back to them to start doing consulting again, because I think the thing that everybody kind of missed with the pandemic is that Live Nation got hit pretty hard just because, nothing was going on for a number of months. And then now you're looking at, socially distanced events, and you're looking at like the drive-through events are another thing that kind of popped up. But as a company, they took a major hit. So I'm glad that I'm able to kind of help them, from a consultancy standpoint, transition into that virtual. And they were doing a great job beforehand, but now it's, everybody's kind of looking at the bigger picture, in case this ever happens again, we have to prepare for it. So
yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think there's no better time for what you do, as a career. And yes, let's everybody agrees that this was a terrible year, right? Nobody wanted this to happen, but it's like we tell our musician guests that come on, you found a way. You found a way to keep going, and kudos to you. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I feel very grateful. Like I acknowledge that it's been a rough year, emotionally, physically, obviously for financially for a lot of people, but we just were in a position where it didn't affect us. We actually blossomed. I went from a staff of 3 to a staff of 10 within, a year period. And that was something that we weren't expecting to have happen. Obviously, I mean, the minute the pandemic struck, I was like, we're screwed, and it was like, I don't know what we're going to do. But then everything just kind of fell into place, and, we lucked out, definitely.
Yes, ma'am. Well, hard work. I mean, that's what it comes down to, and perseverance.
Yeah, absolutely.
It takes a lot, it really does. It takes a lot to build, and to kudos to you for doing it at this time. Mm-hmm. And one of the worst times to do anything, people say, especially for businesses. Kudos for you for building, taking that step and doing it. It's
well,
amazing.
I think as much as, when my first business failed, and it was 100% my fault because I, wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I, unfortunately fell into a trap of like wanting to party and not, pay my bills. And, I wasn't being honest with the people around me about what was happening with the business. And when I look back on it, I feel like that is partially what set me up for success this year, because I could have easily just gotten frustrated when we had to cancel a speaking tour, and we had to cancel, Danny had been planning on going and doing his solo his solo tour. And then the cruise was canceled for New Kids. And then, it's like when we started to see everything kind of roll into, oh gosh, what are we going to do? Yeah. I was like, you know what? I've been through this before. You have to stay positive. You have to push through. We can figure it out. And, I feel like that failure set me up for at least being more prepared this year than if I had all this success and then all of a sudden, boom, you get thrown a wrench in your plans. So.
Yeah, well, and honestly, it might have been, it might have ended differently.
Yeah,
if you weren't prepared. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't really know how to succeed until you failed. I'm a firm believer in that. You have to be able to learn the lessons from failure to be able to succeed properly. I know that sounds crazy and nonsense, but it's so true.
It is, and it's I I hit rock bottom in so many ways that now I look back on it, and when I'm able to pay my staff and I'm able to, be honest with people about like, yes, we have our successful days, but it's not always easy work. I'm editing sometimes for, 7-8 hours a day. And then I still have to, do staff meetings and do partnership meetings and, get everything in order. Filming, like even when we did a live stream with Danny, I guess it was about 2 weeks ago now. And it was the first time that we had done the live stream where we were actually at his house when we did it, as opposed to kind of what we're doing here. We would set up a broadcast and he would be there, we'd be in our office, and it that was like a 12-hour day because we had filmed episodes of his YouTube channel all day, and then we just stayed and did the live stream. And I haven't worked a 12-hour day in so long. I was exhausted.
Yes, ma'am. I get it. I totally get it.
So I mean, why don't you take us for those who haven't seen the woodworks? Give us a description. Tell us about the entire thing. What's the premise and everything?
Yeah. So at the end of 2019, Danny and I had started bouncing around some ideas about him potentially doing some YouTube content. And it was a very loose idea because, at the time we were planning on, he had tours scheduled and he had, Fenway, we were doing our performance at Fenway this year and the cruise was scheduled. So everything was still like in normal times. And we, it was kind of like I wouldn't say an afterthought. It was just one of those like, hey, wouldn't this be cool if we could do something like this? So we actually took a couple of meetings for a potential reality show because Danny's a phenomenal chef. Like he obviously does most of it from
really
home.
Good.
It's so good. Like there's a reason I haven't lost weight lately. Let me tell you. But he came up with this concept and he basically said, when we got to like summer of last year, he's like, maybe we should do this. So we started bouncing around ideas and he really wanted to have his own cooking show, but he wanted it to be more. So he wanted it to be he wanted it to be something that was not only his mom's recipes and his friends' recipes and, his family, and kind of explain who he is and what his family, means to him, but then also incorporate his music, incorporate, he has his breast cancer foundation for his mom and, the new kid stuff and just everything, he's an accidental comedian. I mean, even listening to his movie reviews and stuff, I mean, he cracks me up. And I think this kind of opened up a new opportunity for him to not only do something that, obviously the biggest thing is that he doesn't want somebody to step in and ruin it creatively or tell him that he can't do something that's not authentically him. And so doing the YouTube channel gives him that platform where we can ultimately do whatever we want. So, I think that's the big thing for Danny was that he wanted to do it with, people who understood his vision and wanted to do, what he wanted to do. And so I was very fortunate to bring on Elena, who helps me with our photography and videography. She is a phenomenal, I mean, she's so talented. Her photos are just breathtaking the way she captures them. And she does the professional food photography with the portrait photography, and she helps me with the video. But it's literally just myself, Danny, his daughter Chance, and Elena. I mean, everybody kind of thought we had this whole big crew doing it. Nope, it's just the four of us for the most part. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I totally get where Danny's coming from and where you're coming from. You know what works, and so therefore that's what you got to do. I mean, don't change anything up if it's working.
Yeah. And that was the big thing too, was like a lot of people, they meet Danny for 5 minutes in a meet and greet line, or they have like a brief conversation with him. And, when we were discussing what to do, I told him, just be you. Cause like I've known Danny for so long that, I know who he is, and I know that he's a kick in the butt and he enjoys laughing and, doing all these things. And so it's been fun to kind of show people who may not necessarily know Danny just who he is behind the music side of it.
Behind his muscular body. Because, a lot of people are stereotypes, and it happens. I mean, if I were looking at Danny, like I remember the first time I saw him, I was like, that dude is so big. I mean, this was like 5 years ago with Nelly and TLC. The first concert I attended. And I was like, which, by the way, quick story is my inspiration of losing 100 pounds in 3 months was because of Danny.
That's awesome.
You would love that.
I saw New Kids, TLC and Nelly. And I said, these guys are, in their late 30s at the time and everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're all in shape. All of them are just taking off their shirts and just like super fit. And 3 months later, I lost 100 pounds.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's not,
I've lost a lot more now.
That's awesome. No, that's fantastic. Cause I think the thing too is like, even with like weight loss, cause like I'm going through it right now. As a girl, it stinks because if your weight goes up and down, everybody like, and I know it does it for guys too, where it's like, if somebody will pick you apart for how you look. And,
Definitely.
Danny did the same thing for me. Like I've been around him so much, you see that fitness routine and you see what he puts into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I filmed with him at the boxing gym that he goes to in Miami. We decided, and it was funny because we hadn't told anybody we were doing this yet. And we were filming, it's the middle of September in Miami. So humidity is ridiculous. And we're in this boxing gym that is literally, it's like a garage door. So there's no air conditioning. And I'm literally in the middle of a pandemic, mind you, crawling on the gym floor to like take these videos and stuff. But Elena and I were there. He did an hour of it was jump roping.
Whoa.
Wow.
I can't even jump rope for like 10 seconds without either falling or just looking dumb. And meanwhile, Danny like was literally just going for an hour. Then he would pause, have a conversation with us, go right back to it. And it's just so effortless watching him do that. And then when we've been filming, because we've been asked a lot if he's going to do fitness segments and things like that, we have been filming them. There's definitely going to be more in season 2, but it's interesting because he will literally do his entire workout and then we film the segment. So he's doing all of that every morning. And then we take like a 2-hour break where we eat lunch and he goes and showers and cleans up. And then we're cooking for 6-7 hours after that and filming multiple episodes. So I have so much respect for, and even the rest of the guys, I mean, just knowing their fitness routines and what they do to prepare for a show. And it's incredible, especially at their age.
It is. And it was shocking. Like, I guess, actually New Kids, Nelly and TLC, I think it was the main event tour. That was my very first concert ever. And so
That's
I guess it was the first time I've been exposed to like other like people and
that's a great first concert, by the way. How can you
look, when they came out and did a block party and the coats and everything and
good.
Oh my goodness, chills. I mean, even now, like it's crazy.
So good. I can't like my first concert was Christina Aguilera. That was my first concert when I look back and I'm like, that was a good, because it was when she toured with Destiny's Child was her opener. So I got to see Beyonce before she was Beyonce. So, and I was in Billings, Montana at the time. Like she just happened to come to State Fair in Billings, Montana, and I lucked out and my mom got me tickets. So
that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I've never seen New Kids. I've never had the privilege and I've wanted to go to the Boston Red Sox place because they're my favorite baseball team. I wanted to go there, but Fenway, sorry. But, things happen, so.
Yeah, and we're still scheduled for the reschedule this year. It's just, every time everybody asks me, I'm like, just from, a professional standpoint, I mean, number one, it's too early to call it. And then number two, just not knowing yet, but they'll be back. I mean, even if for some odd reason it was postponed again, I mean, especially for them to play Fenway, because I couldn't even imagine growing up in Boston and then being able to play Fenway Park. Like that would be an incredible experience.
Dream.
Yeah, for sure.
So you've talked a lot about you and Danny working together. Can you give us a background on how you met and then how it became a working relationship? I mean,
well, it's funny because I actually met Danny through AJ from Backstreet.
Yeah.
So this was basically, AJ and I were working together at the time because I was handling, his bookings for fan conventions and things like that back in like 2015, 2016. And him and I were bouncing ideas off of like people he knew to like see if anybody would be interested. So I messaged Danny on Instagram. He responded and he was just like, yeah, maybe. I mean, what? And then he was like, how do you know AJ? We started, and it was so funny because knowing that he wrote me back as quick as he did was very, like, okay, and I was very upfront with everyone. I'm 34, so I was a Backstreet Boys fan. I was, I wasn't a New Kids fan at all. And it wasn't because I didn't know who they were or didn't care for them. Yeah. It was because I just grew up on Backstreet and I grew up on, NSYNC and stuff. So it was,
Yeah, girl, I got you.
And so for me, when I reached out to him and like we started talking back and forth just about potentially working together then, but it wasn't, it definitely was not meant to turn into a friendship, and it just did. I mean, we had so much in common. We both lived in South Florida at the time. So it was like, it just serendipitously, he lived, literally like 20 minutes from me. So we struck up a friendship. We stayed in that friendship. And then, I credit Danny a lot with, he was there for me when everything kind of fell apart, and it was one of those things where I was able to talk to him and he kind of talked me through it and said, hey, get it together. You'll be fine. It's the entertainment industry. Just, do what you got to do. And then when I was working at Live Nation, we just kept the friendship going, and then went to mixtape tour, and here we are. Now we're working together. So long-time friendship that started with an Instagram message.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's
splitting his DMs.
I mean, isn't that how friendships blossom today?
Mm-hmm.
Just a start of a message.
Yeah, I mean, any friendship. I mean, that's how I met you guys. We message back and forth, and it's funny that if you think back to like our childhoods, we never had access to the people that we admire like this. This is just a different world that we live in.
Yeah. This is like for us to have people on here. It's an honor, but it's a dream for us.
Yep.
I mean, it really is. I mean, growing up, I would have never thought, we would have, someone like Jeff Timmons from 98 Degrees. Like,
Andi Albin,
the Andi Albin.
Yeah.
Sitting here just trying to be a legend in my home office.
Icon status, girl.
You got a nice little collection back there too.
Yeah, those are not my shoes, but they are good shoes.
I know they're not yours, but they're
not mine. I do have some sweet. I do, obviously AJ and I have been friends forever. I have some awesome shoes because of AJ. Like I have Louboutins because of him. I got into Air Jordans because of AJ. So I actually do have my own. These ones aren't mine.
Yes, ma'am. We usually get into the fan questions at the end, but they're coming in like wildfire. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask one from Miss Kim. She's an amazing artist, a good friend of ours. What is okay? Obviously, you work with icons, so but let's think outside the box. Who's your next target, or who's your next client that you're targeting?
That's a tough one because I have a list of clients that we have been in the process of talking to who kind of took that hiatus and took that break, during COVID, just to kind of take the breather out of it, but. I was actually blessed enough to work with Eminem when I was at Live Nation. And that was probably like meeting him and Dr. Dre was probably the highlight of my life.
Oh my goodness.
Dude. I know. That was literally the highlight of, I almost died. Like it was so awkward at first because I didn't know how to behave, and then it's funny because they ended up being the most professional, the most kind, they were some of the easiest, and I've worked with a lot of people, especially when I was at Live Nation, but I mean they were top notch, honestly, like the best group I've worked with. So Eminem was definitely my top tier, and I've been blessed to work with him. So yeah.
You're officially legendary status because of that.
Dude, I am dumbfounded right now.
Wow.
And I tell you, that was probably, I've had a couple of good fangirl moments over the years, and that was one where I had to rein it in because I was I almost asked Dr. Dre, do you know who you are? You know who you are. And the funniest part was I actually worked with Travis Scott about 2 years before I left Live Nation. So that was 2018. And when I was there that year, he always remembered my name. He was always super cordial. And it was funny because he had spoken with Dr. Dre probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 months before he had his aneurysm. And he had asked him, he goes, yeah, I worked at Live Nation. We had a great group. And he's like, oh, was it Andy's group? And he knew my name and he remembered. He had such a good It was when I got that
Legendary.
message from Travis's like assistant, and she was like, "Let me tell you," I was like, "I can just die right now, straight out of Compton, kill me, shoot me, I'm done." I was like, "I'm done."
Man, legendary status.
I don't know how you keep your composure. I met AJ McLean once. I met AJ once, and like when he said, I've told the story, so bear with me. But when we took the picture, he asked my wife. He goes, you know, how long you been a fan? And she goes, no, I'm here because of my husband. And we took the picture, and my smile, I couldn't move my face muscles. It was like a fanboy status, man. It was wild.
The AJ, it's funny because like obviously AJ and I continued our friendship beyond when we were working together, and when I first met him was probably my biggest fangirl moment ever. Like I had a complete. It was so embarrassing. I was working an event, and I was actually working for Joey Fatone at the time. So I was there, and
just drop all the names now, won't you?
Might as well, right? So I was working for Joey at the time, and he was running late. I remember the whole thing like it was yesterday, because AJ will repeat it to people, because this is how I got my nickname from him, was this day. So Joey was late because he was doing press for my Big Fat Greek Wedding too. And I was at the event by myself, and I had actually met Nick Carter already. Like he was at the event, but I wasn't working with him. He was with someone else. I was fine with Nick. I don't know what it was. Like I felt like him and I just had we were cool. So I saw Nick. I knew AJ was going to be at the event, and I had actually told. I was so stressed about meeting AJ. I had told Joey. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And he was like, he told me to calm down like 3 or 4 times. He's like, you'll be fine. You'll be. So I get to the event, and I'm completely fine. And then the girls who were working at the event, they pulled me aside, and they were like, hey, we have a problem. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, I know Joey's going to be late. And they were like, no, AJ's here by himself and doesn't know what he's doing. Like they sent him without a rep. They sent him without like any. So he showed up, and the only staff support they had given him was a volunteer. And of course, like sometimes, you'll have celebrities and entertainers that go to these events, and if they have a volunteer and they've done it before, it's never a big deal. I've met some amazing women and men over the years that have volunteered for the events, and they work as hard as we do. So I was like, okay. And they were like, well, if you want, and one of the girls knew I owned an agency at the time. And she's like, if you want to sign him. And Joey said the same thing to me. He goes, if you want to work with AJ, this is I'm like, I can't work with AJ. I said it to like 3 people. I'm like, are you guys out of your mind? And then they literally put us next to each other, and they looked at him, and they were like, Andi's really good at what she does. She will help you. She'll get you set up. And he looked at me, and he's like, hey, I'm AJ. And I went, I know. I know. And he's like looking at me like, what's your name? So I introduced myself. I calmed down a little bit, get him to the table, get him set up. We had a volunteer that was working the table. I have a brief conversation with Nick. Nick actually asked me if I was okay twice, because I think he thought like I was because I'm sweating. It was so embarrassing. So then like I always make the joke, like I'm not afraid of eating. I'm a girl that likes to eat. I mean, I didn't get this body by not eating. And I decided for whatever reason, I was like, I'm starving, because when I get stressed, I eat. So I went to the green room, and I piled a ton of fruit on this plate, and then I piled 2 donuts on top. And AJ was standing next to me, and he looks at me and he starts laughing, and I'm like, and I like got all nervous, and he goes, doesn't that defeat the purpose of the fruit? And he said like that. And I'm like, oh my God. And then he looked at me and he goes, that's it. I'm never calling you by your name again. You're Donut. And to this day, they didn't call me Donut. So everybody, that was probably like that was the hardest day, because like he broke out into song. I had to sit through the panel in Salt Lake City where him and Nick were singing to people. I had never seen Backstreet Boys in a concert, just because when you grow up in Montana, the closest concerts you can go to are like Denver and Seattle. And my family just didn't have the money for it. So this was like, I was like floored. And then from that point forward, like I had made such an impression on him professionally. He had decided to work with us. And it was so funny because then we, like I made a TikTok about it the other day. It was like, you go from meeting somebody who was your favorite Backstreet Boy and losing your like mind, as a fangirl. I was like, it was so surreal to then become friends with AJ, and we traveled together and we did so much fun stuff together. And we actually disconnected for a while just because we, obviously AJ was focusing on his sobriety. I had stuff that was going on because of the business failure and hitting, my levels. And we actually reconnected. I went to go see DNA because he finally was like, he reached back out and he was like, hey, I'm going to give you some tickets. So I took 3 of my girlfriends with me. We went to the show, and that was probably surreal because it's a little different when you know them and you get to go see, and you're just like, this is it's so crazy when you know them and you're watching them perform. So that was crazy.
DNA, we've seen DNA. It's
so
just
good.
Yeah, it's hard to describe what we got to witness. We both went to Vegas and saw him. Went to see DNA a few times, and incredible, man.
Yep. The best opening of a show I've ever seen in my life.
100%. The graphics and the video and just the overall the feeling in the arena when they come on stage. And I think it was interesting because it was such a long show, but it did not feel long. Like it literally did not feel as long as it was.
Yes, not at all.
So crazy.
What was your best what's your best memory from that show? I mean, we all have things that, and by the way, you're living our dream, so we're just going to get that out of the way. But what was your best memory of the DNA tour, the DNA show?
Man. Well, obviously the opening was great, but my favorite moment, I loved the version they did of Everybody for that show.
Yes.
Like, just utilizing the Days of the Dead theme and like, just the energy with like the lasers and the way that it was set. I mean, it was just so like one of my girlfriends that was with me, she kept saying it was epic, and she wasn't wrong. Like such a great version because it was a little bit different, but it wasn't far off from that homage to like, hey, we did like it had that Thriller feel obviously in the video, but this was like an amplified version.
Oh man, it was incredible.
Yeah, I'm so sidetracked now. Like we have a list of talking points, and like it's all gone.
I'm just reading them.
I tend to mess up podcasts.
This in such a good way though. Like I didn't know all that. That's the thing, Caleb, that I talk about. Like we love having musicians, we love having actors, but the behind the scenes stuff, that's where the magic happens, Andy. That's where it is.
And it's one of those things too, where like when I was working events and stuff, I never thought that I would get to work just in the music industry. Because when I did live events and stuff, I worked with like a variety of different actors and musicians and performers and things like that. So for me, it's just been so cool to, like when I was still full time at Live Nation, I did. I got to see Tom Petty before he passed. I got to see Jimmy Buffett was fun. That was a fun concert. I mean, he's still performing, but it was fun. I got to work when Britney Spears did a couple of shows. I got to work with Britney's team, which was, Jennifer Lopez's team. I worked with Lady Gaga on a few shows because I did travel quite a bit the first year and a half because I don't have children yet. So it's easier for them to ask like those of us who don't have kids and we can do multiple things to just kind of, like, hey, go ahead. If you want to be there, we'd rather fly you to where you need to go. Or, I would even work like being in South Florida. I was able to work in West Palm Beach. I was able to work in Fort Lauderdale and Miami. So I worked music festivals. Like David Guetta is one of like the nicest dudes I've ever worked with. Like it is fun because you do meet these people along the way who, you either strike a friendship with or you work together again. And, like you guys had Jeff last night. I've known Jeff as long as I've known AJ, and we reconnected probably, I guess it's only been like 8 months or so since I finally I reached out to Jeff and he was like, oh, you're back to, and it was one of those things where I'm like, this is fantastic. I'm glad that I get to like reconnect with people that, I love and admire and I've had such a good working relationship with.
Oh yeah. Wow, man.
I'm like, I
Trying to turn you guys off.
no, ask Caleb. Like, I'm never at a loss for words. Like, we've interviewed, one of our favorite Backstreet members, Brian. And you know what? Thank you for watching this show.
Yes.
Caleb had told me that you watch our episodes, and
I do.
means the world to us. Like,
Yeah.
especially
It's
now
funny
knowing.
Now it's funny. Somebody had actually sent me, because a lot of the Backstreet Boy fans that I'd met over the years, just being, out there with AJ and stuff, a lot of them will send me podcasts and things and go, have you seen this? Have you looked at? And so I think it was like in June or July last year, like everybody was still kind of like heavy quarantine. I mean, except I live in Florida. What's a quarantine?
Yeah, true.
So I was still things were still going on here, but everybody was kind of still stagnant. And so Danny was actually at the time, he was doing Zoom calls with fans. So I was spending twice, like 1 or 2 times a week, we would set aside like 4 hours and just, he would do 30-minute increments with groups of fans that requested time it was just a good way for him, and Donnie both did it actually. And they were doing, just conversations with fans to keep their, spirits up when everything was kind of shut down. And when that was going on, I was getting a lot of podcasts and things sent to me, and they were like, you should reach out to this and that. And it was funny because they sent me yours, and I was like, I've never seen that. And so I watched like your previous episodes, and then I just kept watching it. So I had actually been listening when Caleb had reached out to me. I was like, yep. I was like, I'm very familiar with you guys. So
She's like, I know who you are. And I was like, you do?
This is awesome. This is awesome.
Yeah. It's
love
cool
it.
to be recognized,
Yeah.
well, it means you guys have done a really good job. I think the difference, and it's you get a lot of fan podcasts that are girls for boy bands, and for that, even for the 90s in general, it's usually women who are doing the podcast.
It's not two grown men.
That's the thing. And it's not a bad thing. It's one of those things where I think people forget that men can be as fans of this just as much as, women can.
Or even more.
Yeah. I mean, I've met some of the greatest guys working alongside Danny. And, I've done so many, I've met so many cool, like we have a lot of the ones that are like in the New Kids fandom, a lot of their wives are fans, but like, they're just as cool. Like I would rather talk to people who accept, because I'm sure you guys knew this, especially being guys. If you were in certain circles and you liked a boy band, it wasn't always cool, even though now it's like, oh, it's awesome that you're into that. Telling somebody that you liked the Backstreet Boys back in like 2000 and you're a freshman in high school like I was, it wasn't always, they're like, really? And then of course I'd be like, well, I also listen to Eminem. I have it's like you have this eclectic music taste, but I'm sure you guys got a lot of slack, when you were younger. And
I think we still do. I mean, I know I do. I still, people don't take me seriously because of my musical or music preference, and it's okay. It's okay because it got us to this.
Yep.
And it's I could say most of the music artists, I'm a big 50s through 90s fan, but the boy bands is what changed, impacted my life most. If I had to choose somebody or genre, it was always a boy band songs that got me through, the things I was going through.
Yeah. And I say it all the time. I'm just like, it's different, like with the Backstreet Boys fandom, because I've met so many of those fans when we were doing autograph signings and events, and obviously this was between like their touring years and things like that. But it is a very tight knit fan base. But there was just something, and I just talked about this on another podcast last week. There's just something about the New Kids fandom that, it's like the energy and just the way that they treat each other with like, obviously every fandom has, its fair share of people who don't, treat each other kind. And, and that goes for any music. It doesn't matter which band or which musician, but, for the most part, I mean, I can say this, the New Kids fan base has been so accepting and so kind to me. And I've had, there's been a few bad apples, of course, but you know, I also where they kind of underestimated when I came in. I just want to be kind and meet everybody, and I want to share in this fandom, and I want them to experience like what Danny's doing, and you know what my other clients are doing. And for me, you know, if somebody comes at me and says something negative, I'm like, you know, once you've hit rock bottom, there's very little you can say to me that will faze me. So you can make fun of me for doing what I do, and you can make fun of me for putting my focus into boy bands, but I'm running a successful business. I'm surrounded by really great people. I get to meet people like you guys, you know, every day. And it's, I don't care.
Yeah.
You know?
And you know, and that's one thing going back to the new kid concerts, you know, my experience is like, new kids just, you could tell they adore their fans. I mean, when they go out in the crowd every night, and I'm over there like, this ain't gonna be good. Like this woman's grabbing Donnie by his neck and pulling him, and he's just like, like they are just, you know, no matter what they're, you know, people pulling on Danny's shirt and everything, and I'm like, this ain't gonna be good, and they're calm. They're calm about it. You know, which I mean, you know, Danny's like, I can handle it.
They're all like, he's like, yeah, I got this under control. It is funny because, you know, the first time I worked a show, after Danny had hired me, the first time I worked a show, and he was like, you know, should we go live? Because I was really big on we have to start doing live streams. We have to start doing, you know, fan interaction stuff on your Instagram and on your, you know, just basically rebuilding what he had already been in the process of building. And I don't know how we managed to do it. First of all, I had no credential. I had my Live Nation credentials with me and a VIP badge, which was just a ticket badge. It wasn't anything with like any power.
Wow.
And Danny goes,
level 1.
Literally, I'm like, this is level 1. And Danny introduced me to, you know, their security team, and he was like, well, she's going to do a live stream, so, you know, just basically make it happen. Was the conversation. And I'm like, so how are we going to pull this off? So the guy who was security for Danny that night, he was like, listen, I know that you're with me, so I'm just going to direct. And he's like, just, you know, follow him. So it was during block party, and I went on the floor. I'll have to send you guys, like, the clip is actually, it's on Danny's Instagram TV. I uploaded it after we did the live stream, but it was so surreal because I was right beneath Danny when he was standing on the box, because this was during Mixtape Tour when they had the boxes that were kind of in the middle of the crowd. And it was so weird being down there. And like, you know, because I had worked like, you know, when I did guest relations, I was always like up at the front or like dealing with the band. I had never been in the crowd working on that level. And I was just like, you know, I had girls basically like, who are like, people started to recognize me at that point. So it was a little weird following him, but we did the whole song. I stayed with him while Donnie did his rap. I went up and around the corner. And when they went to B stage, and it's so hard watching that video because I was so nervous, and you can watch the security guard literally telling me to follow and pushing me in front of him and making sure. This next tour, obviously, there will be a little more organization because we just kind of winged it last time. It was just so awesome to be. The energy is so different because, like a Backstreet Boys show, I've been very fortunate now to be in the pit. I've been, I've been to so many Backstreet Boys shows where I was like in different areas that it's a different energy. Like most of the fans are still wonderful, but the guys don't go in the crowd, and they don't, you know, do this. They don't do A stage, B stage, you know, up in the audience. Like there's no. So working a new kid show, you never know what you're going to get because it also changes from venue to venue. It changes, and the fans are just so amped up because they pay attention to the fans that are in the rafters. They pay attention to, you know, the fans that are, you know, in the general sections. They don't just pay attention to the pit and to the front rows. And I think that's where, you know, the fans are like, this is different and this is great. And the energy is just, it's unmatched.
And go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, do you have a favorite tour of the new kids that you've been on?
So Total Package Tour is probably my favorite, and it like Mixtape Tour obviously holds a special place because that was when I started really working with, you know, Danny one-on-one, but I was at Live Nation when Total Package Tour was going. I got to see it. I think I saw the show 5 or 6 times that year because I was still working in the offices. And it was just watching that opening and the energy. And then my favorite part of the show that I am still in love with is when they went through all the like albums, and they did the different, when they did like they were all, Donnie was wearing the jean the romper.
Yeah.
Like that part of the show was just, for me, it was such a cool introduction to like fans who may not have known their earlier music, but then they also included the newer music, and it was such a cool part of the show. I did love it, but I tell everybody my favorite part of any New Kid show will forever be Jordan Knight during Main Event Tour, because Jordan is just, for me, I'm like, he's just so yummy when he's up on stage, like doing that. Like when him and Joey did their solos, I'm like, that was probably like, that's the moment that sticks out where you're like, holy cow, they were on point. Like even just performance wise, it was great.
Yeah, they really were. So let's see. So the total package, was that when they were singing like the 80s, like Stop It Girl?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Look.
So good.
That right there was like, Vicky was like, they're really singing this. I'm like, yeah, like they are, like, especially, all these years later.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's funny if you don't, like I said earlier, I wasn't a New Kids fan. So for me, I didn't really start to experience the music. Like I look back sometimes on like my conversations with Danny, and there will be moments when he'll send me a music video or a song or a clip that I have no idea what it is. Even to this day, there's certain things that get brought to my attention, and I'm like, that happened. And then I always make the joke, I'm like, I was born in 86. Like I literally will look at everybody and go, give me a little bit of a break. I was born in 86. But, for the most part, my mom, she was such an eclectic music fan that we actually had the first album in the house just because my mom liked it. My mom loved Backstreet Boys with me. Like she was actually, it is ironic because like my mom has since passed away, and she actually had no idea, she never got to see that side of it. But it's like I've told AJ a million times before, I'm like, there are Backstreet Boys songs that take me back to thinking about like, I remember when the Millennium album came out and they were on TRL. Yeah. And my mom pulled me from school and brought me home so I could catch it on time, because I was mountain time. So I was like, 2 hours behind New York, and my mom pulled me out of school so I could see it. So there are moments that I remember that they may not be New Kids related, but I, obviously with that fan base, I understand because I had those moments with Backstreet. So it's definitely different.
and I think that's why they're still around. Like Caleb brought up, because they were actually singing, and the crowd work and being engaged with your fans. They're best ever at it. I mean, you talk about New Kids and BSB, and there's others, but New Kids and BSB, they can sing. What do they always say? I can sing at the drop of the hat, and people see that, they recognize that.
Oh yeah.
Like that acapella part of DNA, like when they do the acapella and you're like, they are so on point. It's so beautiful like that. And I think that people underestimate, they think because you're in a boy band, you're not talented, or they think because you don't always have like a lead solo in every song that your boy band's in, that you're not talented. And that's just not the case. Like a lot of these, like even looking back on NSYNC, everybody's talented. They all have these, immense talents, and they came together to form these bands. And Backstreet, to this day, I'm just in awe of how talented all 5 of them are. and New Kids too. I'm just, it never, like, Jordan is always like that falsetto of Jordan Knight's is just incredible. Even now that he's 50, I guess he's 50 he's 50 this year. So, just his falsetto, and just even Danny, everybody kind of underestimates because they don't always get to hear him when they're doing, the 5-point harmonies, and they're doing everything that goes into a New Kid show. But if they took the time to listen to his solo music, he's got one of the most breathtaking voices when it comes to that style of music. And and Donnie is OG. I mean, that rap that he does, like, that's what always sticks out to me.
Don't wake me up from napping. And one of my favorite Danny Wood songs is it's Look at Me.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Me was the first time I listened to Danny Wood like sing solo, And I'm gonna tell you, you're absolutely right. Danny's got a beautiful voice.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I hear him when I go to concerts. I hear him singing, and you know, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, if it's not Justin or JC, I don't hear, you know,
Right.
everybody else." And I'm like, same thing with Kevin, same thing with, you know, Howie, Chris Kirkpatrick, who's got an amazing falsetto.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
people,
Chris is so talented.
I mean, The Lion Sleeps Tonight. Like incredible. But you know, same thing with Danny Woods. I hear him all the time in all the songs, everything, you know.
And I think that's everybody kind of, you know, they take they obviously they kind of don't pay attention to parts of that sometimes if like their favorite person's not, which is totally fine. I mean, that's the beauty of, you know, whether it's a boy band or like a group of girls or like even rock bands. I mean, even if you're, you know, look at, I use Motley Crue as an example all the time because it's like, you know, Tommy Lee, that they would not exist if Tommy Lee was not on the drums like he is. And you know, that's one of my favorite examples to use because most people know them just from mainstream media, but it's when it comes to Danny's solo music, like one of the things that was kind of fun when we were jumping into the woodworks, he wanted me to use, like, he has a very vast catalog of music. Like Danny's music obviously goes back all the way to when he was doing like hip hop tracks, and he produced a lot of hip hop music and, you know, things like that. And then it comes all the way up to what he's been doing now, which is more of an acoustic feel. And, you know, I've been very fortunate to hear, you know, the new music that has not been released yet because we're waiting for that opportunity for him to tour to raise money for the Breast Cancer Foundation for Remember Betty. And when we were going through music, he was like, "We'll pick a song and we'll make it the theme song of the Woodworks." And then as we were filming, he started putting those like lyrics together, and he was like, "Maybe I should just do a theme song." And we were like, "Yeah, go for it." I didn't actually think he was going to do it. Like, I thought that it was like, you know, you're in the moment and you're talking and you're filming. So when we released the theme song, like because we got to hear obviously the versions of it as it was getting done. And we're hoping, you know, that Danny will do a longer version because obviously the theme song version is like a minute and a half, the one that's on the YouTube channel. But they didn't realize, like, we actually, Danny he wrote it, produced it, sang it, and we did all of that in the middle of filming the actual channel over the course of the fall. And they kind of, you know, everybody was like, "This really happened." I'm like, "Yeah." And it's great. Like, he did such an amazing job, and it gets stuck in your head. Like,
it does. It does.
And he was not apologetic for it. Like, it's totally Danny. It's like, if you listen to it, it's you know, I wouldn't say it's a safe for work song in certain parts of it, but it's comical. I mean, just the whole, like, the jab at Food Network, and, you know, like, we have actual footage that, you know, we haven't put up yet where we would be filming and Danny would take notes of things that would happen when we were filming that he put into the theme song. Like the trash can incident happened. Like when he was like, "Someone stole my trash can." We're in the middle of filming, and that video, we will post that video eventually because we got everything on film. But the trash can got stolen in the middle of us filming, and we were like, it was one of those moments where we're like, "Did the trash can really get stolen?" Like, we were like, "Is this really happening?" And it was, and you know, that's and it got stolen. We had to, like, Danny had to file a police report. Like, it was a whole big thing. Like, somebody legit stole the trash can. So. Moments like that, you kind of look back and, like, for him to be able to take that moment and turn it into a theme song just goes to show how talented he is. And, you know, like like the acapella during DNA. I mean, all 5 of them are just so talented, and it definitely shows.
Oh, definitely.
Caleb and I have been on the market for a new theme song for our show since we're doing, you know, the new era. And I'm just saying, I'm going to shoot for the stars here and just say, anybody anywhere, you know, we'll test the waters. Just let us know if Danny's,
particularly Danny Wood.
Yeah.
You know.
I didn't want to name drop, but I mean,
you know, I told him, I was like, you definitely have a knack for writing theme songs that are catchy. So you never know.
Yes, ma'am. Do you have a I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have a fangirl moment and maybe an embarrassing moment or something that you haven't shared with anybody that when you met somebody?
it wasn't so much meeting someone. It was during mixtape tour, because it's no secret. I think Jordan is like gorgeous. Like I've always said that. I have so much respect. And the reason that I loved Jordan, and I've said this to people before, was because, as you guys know, in like the 2000s, he was a solo artist, and then of course he toured with Nick. Yeah. So when they did Nick at Night and stuff, so I was familiar with Jordan long before this became a thing. So we're in the middle of it was Orlando, and so mind you, I did 33 shows during mixtape tour. So I was on the road at it was 33 different shows. We were busy. I had 20 million things going on. Plus I was still working full time at Live Nation, and I still had other clients. So I'm exhausted. I get to Orlando. I wasn't working that night. I was kind of working. I had a couple of brand partners from Live Nation that I was hosting that night. And then I had a couple of my girlfriends that came to the show with me. And I'm sitting there, and I had always been close to where Jordan would come in the audience. It was never I wasn't all the way down or anything, but when I was in the audience, he would always come, during Boys in the Band, he would always be right there. Oh, yeah. Well, I look down and I see our head of security looking up at me, and I see him pointing. And then I see him coming up, and I look, and Jordan's behind him, and I just froze. And I was like, they moved the poor girl, bless her. There was a girl on the end of the aisle, because I was the second seat in. They moved her so Jordan could stand on her seat.
Oh, man.
I'm standing there and in awe, because it's so funny. I had obviously talked to Jordan, worked with Jordan, walked around with Jordan. It was never, I'm looking up and I'm like, oh my God, Jordan Knight's standing on near my seat. the girls that were with me were like, is this really happening right now? They did that to me on purpose. They literally put him, they were looking, because usually what would happen is I would always give them where I was sitting in case anybody needed to come and get me. Yeah, they asked me that night why, and then they put Jordan on my seat, and I'm like the look on my face, and there was video, I literally turned around and looked, and the girls around me were I'm like, yeah, that just happened. And that was one of those moments that just stunned me into silence, because it is hard to have those moments when you're working, but that was one of those, I was so taken off guard, I just stared at it. Nice. I'm like, I don't know how to respond. And, any moment, obviously meeting AJ was probably the biggest fangirl moment that just stood out. But even a couple of times, I'm gonna embarrass one of my best friends at the moment with hers, because I think hers is probably the most epic. Jamie may murder me, so I hope she doesn't. But Jamie at the time, she went to meet me for dinner. We were in Chicago, and I was actually in Chicago with Joey, Nick, and AJ. And so Joey and I were on a mission I had never had deep dish pizza. So I told him to pick the restaurant, and I was like, and I will meet you there. So he texts me and he goes, this is the restaurant. Nick and I will meet you there. And we had a whole group of people we were working with. So it wasn't it was just them, but it was a whole group. I was running late because my flight was late at Chicago. Naturally, my flight was late. So I get there a little bit late. I texted him. I said, I have a couple of girlfriends that are going to be coming. It's Jamie and one of her friends, and Joey had met Jamie already, but I had failed to tell her as a Backstreet Boy fan that Nick Carter was in the room. And so poor Jamie beat me to the restaurant, and she had to walk into a room with Joey and Nick Carter. And to this day, I repeat that story when we have new, because she actually works with me at Remix, but it was one of those moments where she was I walked in and she goes, you failed to tell me something. And I'm like, oh God. I felt so bad because I didn't tell her. And but there are those surreal moments, there would be moments when I would go out with AJ to dinner, and I think that was when it kind of hits you who you're with and when people recognize. And we would be at a restaurant, and you would have tables of people staring because they would recognize AJ, and we would get bombarded at dinner a couple of times, or you would get stopped on the street when you're walking, or, and it doesn't happen as much with new kids because I think that they navigate it a little bit differently, but, usually I'm not with them when I'm wandering the city. So it's a little different, but, AJ, a couple of times there were moments when he would just break out into song, that would be usually when I'm is this happening? I mean, those would be those moments. And then like I was at an event with them one time where him and Howie actually broke, like there was a DJ playing music and him and Howie broke out and did the everybody dance. And I was just standing there going, this is happening. And it's like 2 feet from you. And so there have been those moments, but I think that now that I've been doing it as long as I have, it's kind of diminished it a little bit. Like I don't react the same, but that was the Jordan Knight moment. I was like, oh my God, he just stood on my chair. Like, and I literally was like, and he was singing at me. He knew darn well what he was doing. And I was just like, oh gosh. That was one of those moments. I was like, I can't deal.
Man, that's insane.
Yeah.
You got to experience well, you know, not every guy's dream, but you got to experience the dream of fans, you know, especially the women fans. There's a lot of hate going on right now because of what you just said.
I think my most, like, you know, I get asked a lot about if there's ever been moments with like fans who like I've had probably 2 bad incidents where I've had like a fan get jealous and say something nasty to me like in the moment, and it was always at a Backstreet Boys show. It was never at a New Kid show. The one that sticks out to me was backstage at DNA. I was waiting for AJ, just minding my own business because he was coming back to get me from catering, and Howie walked in and was like, hey, Andy. I'm like, hey, what's up? And it was just so casual. And then Nick like poked his head in and he was like, AJ's showering. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't think anything of it. And this girl literally looked at me and she goes, I don't know who the hell you are, but AJ's with me. And I went, and it made me, I started laughing, and I didn't mean to, because like at least it was one of those, like I wasn't working for him, so I could like be a little bit more. I started laughing and I was like, I'm pretty sure he's with his wife. So I was like, let's calm down. But it was so awkward because then he came in the room and like naturally, you know, I've been friends with him for so long. I did get a hug, and she somehow found me on Instagram. And this was like probably 2 months later. She found me on Instagram and sent me this whole big thing where she basically was like going on. And you can tell it was one of the fans that unfortunately had either been speaking with a scammer profile at one point, and then she must have had a friend who had gotten tickets to get her into catering, and because she had one of the badges, you know, for backstage. And I felt so bad, but I was like, I had to block her. I think that was like one of the craziest backstage weird moments I've ever had, was that, because I was like, and I was so cordial about it, but I didn't mean to in the moment when she said it to me. I just started laughing because I was like, I do that when I feel awkward. I'm like, I just burst out laughing.
and as bad as it sounds, I mean, we've always been about honesty on this podcast. Caleb and I have shared everything, but as bad as it sounds, there are those, you know, like when we started this podcast, there are those groups of people, and they're few and far between, but it's true, that feel like they own part of the Backstreet Boys. And that's something we talked about with Brian and Leanne, you know, is
I feel, especially just knowing some of the things that just get, I wouldn't say misconstrued, but just get, you know, unfortunately we're in a society that's very cancel culture-ish, no matter, it doesn't even matter, you know, if it's something horrible, like if it's something absolutely horrendous, then of course I'm going to expect people to respond a certain way. But people in this society, it's so tough. You could say the wrong thing one time and someone's going to go after you, you know, or like, and I do feel for them because they do get attacked for, I mean, literally Leanne could sneeze and she's going to get attacked. So I'm like, and of course, like there are things that, you know, people kind of forget that people are human, and they will say things that aren't necessarily evil or taken a certain way. 'Cause like, I can come across, like if somebody's emailing or texting me, like, you guys, now that you've talked to me, I always sound like this. Like, this is never a tone. If I'm angry, you know it, but most of the time I sound like this. And I get taken a lot of times as a female for being abrupt. Like, I will have people who tell me that I'm being a you-know-what because I'm very, like, strict and to the point. And it's not that. It's that I'm doing my job. And so I see... I've had trolls. I had someone create a fake account, and this is probably one of the one of those moments, because obviously I'm very open about what happened when I hit rock bottom. You know, I unfortunately chose to use drugs and act like an idiot. And I, you know, want everybody out there who knows, like, if you're doing that and you want to get sober, it is possible. And this was one of those, you know, defining moments for me where I started lying to people and I started, you know, doing dumb stuff. And I was, you know, and my business failed. Like I got evicted, my car got repossessed. All these horrible things happened to me within like a 4-month span, basically. Like it just went downhill and it went fast. So when I cleaned up and I had my job and I was really working hard at Live Nation and staying off of social, in between all of that, yes, I got sued by my landlord at the time. And I had, you know, there was a couple of other, you know, just things from when you get in debt and you're, you know, filing bankruptcy and stuff. Of course, like things happen. There was a fan who took it upon herself to create a fake account and send everybody my court documents. And I don't know, like, obviously I don't care. It's out there. I'm open about it. But just the simple fact of going to a website and downloading it and then sending it to people because they were angry. And then I found out that some of my clients and not clients, like, look, all my clients, I'm open with them. They know my story. They know my spiel.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I'm the one who saw, like, I own what I did. So it's not like it's a thing, but it was so baffling to me. And I was just floored. But at the same time, I was like, if you're taking that time to push negativity on someone else, it goes back to what you said. They feel like they own the fans, like, or they feel like they own your, you know, the person you're working with, or they feel like this entitlement sometimes. And I feel for fans who they genuinely may come to me and say, like, hey, I heard something weird. I'll tell you all my stuff. I'm the most open person when it comes to that, because I'm like, it doesn't pay to be dishonest about stuff. It doesn't pay to do. So for me, it didn't hit me as hard, but I could not imagine having somebody continuously doing it. Like it happens once in a great while to me, not a big deal anymore. But you know, there's girls who don't like me just because I have the job I have, you know, or they, and it's not even just with Danny. Like it's, you know, I have actors I work with. We have a former NFL player that we work with who I actually had somebody go on our page and tell us that, you know, they were like, well, he's not the right fit for you guys. And like flipped out on me the other day. And I was like, over it. So, you know, it's about thick skin when you do this, unfortunately. It's tough because I do put myself out there, and I put myself out there to promote the show. I put myself out there to, you know, I want fans to feel like they have that, you know, hey, I can ask her questions and she's going to be honest with me, or she's going to tell me, like, you know, I have fans message me about concerts right now going, hey, what do you think? And I give them my honest opinion. So it's overwhelming, but I can imagine. I'm sure you guys have had trolls. I know Leanne's had trolls. AJ gets them. I've seen the AJ trolls.
Oh yeah, they're definitely there. You know, it's a crazy thing because whenever we first got the opportunity to present or bring Leanne to the show, we had personal friends, you know, other podcasters, these even some people in charge of group, let's just say groups of the Backstreet Boys, say, you know, your podcast is going to burn to the ground for this. Like you guys are done after this. Like, you know, you guys will be nothing anymore. You will lose everything you have. But I can tell you, it definitely did not happen. You know, our podcast went from, you know, probably in the last, let's see, since January 10th is when we had Leanne. Since then, we've probably gained about 6,000 new members. You know, I mean, the number of people we're getting on the show as guests is insane. Like we're booked till, I mean, honestly, we're trying to do 2 or 3 guests a month, but like as of right now, we're getting pressure to put more people because people are like, yes. You know, we love the content you're spewing out. And, you know, and another thing is, you know, Miss Kim, who's in the audience tonight, she had done this beautiful, which this is actually one of the things right here, the frickin' frack, you know, Brian and Nick. But she had done this beautiful thing for a portrait for a charity event. And she had nothing but hateful comments and like people just jealous because Nick made a video saying like, I loved it. You know, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for doing that and donating all the proceeds to charity. And I'm talking about she was attacked.
people are just I think, like I said this earlier, just with my business in general, I'm grateful for what had happened because I have some of the thickest skin in the world. Like it literally, everything kind of rolls off my shoulders and I just go, whatever, I'm here to do a job. Cause I think the most recent thing that cracked me up is that I have the girls who work for me, I'm extremely protective of because all of them, they all were hired by me because they are good at their jobs, so obviously we're friends with each other. We know each other now, and some of them did come from fandoms, I met them because they were a fan of something but, I have a girl who she worked in sports marketing for years. I have a girl who, she was in PR for years. I have, events managers. I have a former teacher. We have these professional backgrounds. And I will get messages. Somebody assumed that we were volunteering to do what we do. And I started laughing, and I remember the conversation because I saw the tweet because it was a tweet that, obviously it was someone with a locked up profile who created a tweet, and it got sent to me because Lord knows that when you post on social media, even if you're locked up, it's getting to you. Mm-hmm. And I started laughing and I said, my car payment, my mortgage, my electricity, my internet bill, and all of their salaries would beg to differ that we do this for volunteers. And I think everybody, obviously we have a lot of fun with what we do, but Elena, for instance, who does our photography and stuff, she's paid very well because she does an amazing job, I get paid to do what I do, and we don't disclose what we make or what we charge or, just because that's between us and our clients. But, it's disheartening to think that, like you guys said, you can be a fan and work within the industry, or you can be, it's no different. When I was in college, I wanted to work in sports. That was my big goal. I wanted to work for the NCAA or the NBA or, I was in sports marketing. I'm a basketball fan. I'm actually a fanatical football fan. College football to me is life. So how is that different? You know what I mean? It's no different than, obviously people who play sports are fans of the sport. People who are in the industry, they have musicians that they look up to, or they have, and so it is disheartening, but you have to laugh and let it go. I'm sure, like Kim just said, she's going to do more projects in the future, and it should never deter you. It's the whole thing, don't care what other people think. And it took me years to kind of push that off because when things fell apart, I was very quiet because I didn't want people to know that I had another job. I didn't want them to know that I had bounced back from where it was. I had people call Live Nation and tell them that I was on drugs. I get pulled into the office and drug tested at least once a month. And I would do it because you know what? I had nothing to hide. I was like, I'm not doing anything. So I would go in there and I would do it. And it just, that's why when that volunteer comment came up, I was like, I don't volunteer. I'm like, I volunteered and volunteer. When you're not making money in a business and you watch your bank account starting to dwindle, and you see that you can't afford to buy groceries and you're having to borrow money from people, and you're having to, at the time I had lied to my husband about what was in our bank accounts and stuff. And it's not a good feeling. And so now not to have that stress and just to know that things are going well, it's joke's on you for thinking that. So,
absolutely. You're so much stronger too, Andy.
Yeah.
You are. I mean,
and I'm sure it made you guys. I mean, I'm sure even some of the stuff that's been said, and I'm sure with Leanne and Brian, it's been the same thing. They got a lot of crap, and this has always been my thing with politics and everything else. A lot of, from a social media standpoint, I urge people, unless it's something that you're building your platform on, I always say sometimes it's better to just not discuss religion and politics. And it's nothing. I don't shame people for doing it because obviously social media has given us a voice. voice that we never used to have.
Your own personal platform.
But I also don't think it's right to pigeonhole whatever you believe in. It's not right to put people into these categories unless you personally know them and you know that they're a dirtbag. Because trust me, there's dirtbags in the world. Unless you personally know someone, like, you can't make those judgments. It's like when people tell me that they think, obviously Jordan deleted some of his social media recently. That was like a whole big discussion. I have seen every conspiracy theory about why he deleted.
I've been reading them myself.
Yeah, Crazy. even with like when he would tweet about politics, I would see girls like attack him like for having an opinion, and I'm like, I urge you not to do it. Like, I never discuss politics. No one, unless you are my closest friend, you will never know. Like, I never have those discussions with people.
Me too.
And it just makes it easier because there's so much. And now if you get to know me and you ask me questions and stuff, you'll find out, really quick where everything stands. But, I'm also against like hate in general. And, you can't go around telling people, like, I saw a tweet at Leanne where they told her to die.
Yep.
And I was like, guys, like, First of all, we don't need to go around telling someone who's been married to a Backstreet Boy for 25 years that she needs to die because her views don't align with yours. And, it's the assumption that, and that was essentially what happened. And then Parler, we can have that discussion for days. When Brian tweeted that, I knew it was going downhill. Like I knew, I was like, and I felt for him in that moment just because it was I feel like it was a poor marketing decision, but I also, just looking at it, I'm like, is it really the end of the world? Because the website got shut down like 2 days later, and now we've moved on.
I mean, look at exactly. Like, no one's talking about it now, so it's like, it's like things that matter in that moment, but hours later, seconds, days later. Now it's back to love.
Yeah, I mean, and truthfully, like, them as a group, I mean, they're good to their fans. I've seen bands who are not good to their fans. I have seen, people who treat their fans like absolute garbage. And to know that, when a fan base responds a certain way, I feel bad for the musicians because a lot of times it's taken out of context, or and that's just across the board, like not specific to any of these situations, but someone could tweet something, they could say, I hate potatoes, and someone from Idaho is going to be like, what do you mean you hate potatoes? Like it's just the unfortunate side effect of it's social media. Exactly. That's offensive. What do you mean you hate potatoes? And it's one of those things. It's like sometimes Danny will answer people on social media sometimes. And I've had girls who, if he doesn't answer the question the right way, they'll screenshot it and send it to me and go, can you believe this? And I'm like, I reread it and I'm like, why do you guys do this? Like, I said to her, I was like, I responded to one girl recently and I said, he is so good to answer you guys. And I'm so sorry that, you felt like this wasn't the right answer. I was like, but I can assure you that he loves and adores it, which is the truth. Like, it's not. And I felt when I saw that you guys were having her on the show, I was wondering what kind of backlash we were going to
get. Well, check it out. Like the reason we persevered, we were stubborn about it. Caleb and I talked about it a lot, and there was no question that we weren't going to do it. So our thought process and the way that it worked, and to add to this, we got blackballed from a lot of different sites, right? Sites that we thought that we've had people on the show and we thought we were friends, but now we're blackballed. It's fine, whatever. But the whole reason behind it was to show that they are real people. That's why we did it. Everybody has a voice, and we want that voice to be heard. So we never talk politics. I don't even know what Caleb believes in when it comes to that. And I talk to him every day.
Probably a good thing sometimes.
Every day we talk. So that's why we did it. And you know what? I props to you for sticking to your guns on everything. So I am a firm believer too that I feel like in certain situations with women in particular, we tend to mean girl. Like we all do it. Like we all have our little cliques and
we have a tendency to gang up, if one of our friends doesn't like another girl. I mean, it doesn't matter what age we are, we still do what we used to do in middle and high school. And I see it a lot in the fandoms where somebody will, one person will say something negative or do something bad and everybody gangs up on them. And, like one of the girls who works for me on a project by project basis, she got targeted and somebody actually created a fake profile, went on my business page and told me that I would have more success if I fired her.
Oh,
now, mind you, I have no idea who this person was. Like, we still never figured out who it was because I was able to get the profile shut down pretty quickly because it was obviously a fake profile. But just to know, I mean, this is a wife and a mother and somebody who is, she works very hard at what she does and she owns her own business outside of working with me. So it's like, I was so floored, but I wasn't surprised, if that makes sense. Like
perfect.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not floored, but not surprised.
We've got a couple more questions that we want to get to. I'm sorry for that. It's just time flies on this episode or on the show.
Okay.
So, all right. So you had talked about some struggles and things that you got through, same thing with us and music is something that I've been sober for almost 7 years now, or maybe it's 7. Thank you. And music is what has helped me stay strong, and a lot of it is the Backstreet Boys. And like you said, we got made fun of. We still get made fun of for the love of music. Good music is good music. I don't care what it is. Was there a certain song or moment or something that you turn to, that you go to? And you know what? If it's a Backstreet Boys song, that works too. But is there a certain song that you go to? Right.
I would say my go-to music to this day is always going to be like Eminem's Recovery album. And I think that's because, like obviously growing up, like I'm fanatical. If you follow me on social, I'm a huge hip hop fan. Like that's actually like outside of like my love for boy bands and like certain pop bands, and I am extremely obsessed with hip hop. Like you name it, I'm like right now I'm so into like Drake's new song and like, there's just things that I will listen to the Dossier podcast every time it comes out because I'm really into this like, Biggie conspiracy at the moment. So these are things that kind of define who I am. And I felt like that album, even though it came out prematurely for when I was dealing with it, it still just spoke to what was going on in the moment, because the thing that, and it did make me laugh when everybody started the cancel culture stuff on Eminem recently. Because
right? Not happening.
First of all, I started laughing because I'm like, they picked that song. They picked the Rihanna song for the one they wanted to cancel. I'm like, have you guys never listened to the Marshall Mathers LP? Like, let's have a conversation. Or even Slim Shady LP. Like, the first one was even worse. So it made me laugh because, Eminem's show was defining for my teen years because it was just very in your face and the lyrics were very, it touched on social, and it's really ironic, the things it touched on. It touched on social injustice. It touched on, violence. It touched on everything that kind of was in the moment back in like 2003, 2004. And this one, when you listen to the lyrics, it's like he had his usual angry ones, whereas obviously somebody ticked him off and he decided to write a song about him. But there were other ones where it was like, he was championing it. I can't talk today, but he was basically saying like, it's okay to be sober and you can still be happy, and it's okay for you to fail and come back, and it's okay for you to have these defining moments. So I listen, especially when I'm in, I wouldn't even say in a bad mood, but when I'm discouraged, that Eminem album is one that I go to. And my other guilty pleasure is my mother was a fanatical Fleetwood Mac fan, and well, to this day, when I'm in my feelings, I always say like I will listen to Fleetwood Mac. It just it always takes me back for sure.
For some reason, Lindsey Buckingham's Holiday Road just always like it's whenever I go on any trip, it's got to be the first thing I play in my car.
For sure, I'm big on BPM when I'm driving because I drive like a maniac. But when I am listening, like obviously Fleetwood Mac, Lindsey Buckingham's like solo stuff, Stevie Nicks' solo stuff. I listen to a ton of that. And I mean, like for everyday stuff, I obviously listen to a ton of New Kids and a ton of Backstreet, and I always have. But lately I've been kind of back in. I wouldn't even say, it's almost like the '90s dance music lately. Like when I'm alone in the house and I'm like, what am I going to listen to? I'm listening to like Pump Up the Jam and crap, like stuff like I didn't even think I would listen to. But I don't know. It's just to get the moment going, and just to have that, like, something to kind of clean and stuff. It's clean with and organize your life, and go for a walk with the dogs and stuff. But yeah.
Oh man, and that's the thing with music. I find the new stuff is good. I mean, there are some artists, and especially independent and everything, who are really good, but I have to revert myself back to the 50s through the 90s for me. Like it's, if you go on my Spotify, it says like 4,000 something songs.
Easy.
150 of those are today's music.
Yeah.
I mean, and which, by the way, shout out to, Harry Styles, and, doing some good stuff, man.
He is so good. And like the new Justin Bieber album.
I listened to 4 songs last night, and I was like, this is good.
So good. Like I'm not like I wouldn't call myself, I mean, I think Justin Bieber's extremely talented, and Absolutely. I would not, I was actually disappointed when I had an offer to go to the show, and my nieces were not into the idea of Justin Bieber at the time. They were not, I ended up going to, it's funny because they were Team Selena. I remember when it all went down.
Come on.
That was interesting. But I did take him to go see Selena Gomez, and I do have to say live, you know what? One of my favorite I wouldn't even say underrated. I mean, they're definitely not. But Jonas Brothers surprised me how good they were live.
They actually play their instrument.
Yeah.
And especially their new album.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And Nick Jonas as an actor astounds me at how talented he is. So just everything kind of coming together for them. I'm so grateful for them, because that's been one of my favorite live acts. Like even when Joe did like DNCE. Yeah, and like they opened for Selena Gomez when I took Julia that year, and it was interesting. Like it was I was impressed. I was like, these guys are actually really good.
My wife went to a Jonas Brothers concert, and she actually is the one that turned me on to them. They kind of remind me in the In a World Like This tour, kind of reminds me of their shows, where all the guys are playing their instruments, and
I think that's where if you have a musician that plays their instruments and they know music, like they aren't just, because obviously there are artists who are very auto-tuned and very thrown in mix, and it's
I'll be the first one to say it.
Oh my gosh, because like I can't sing for Jack. I mean, I literally cannot carry a tune. Like, don't even ask me to do karaoke unless like I'm gonna rap something, and even then it's questionable. But I played the flute for a year. Like I played the flute and the piccolo. I still have my flute. Like that. That's why like knowing what goes into it and the knowledge behind it and everything that kind of like comes together. Like knowing that they can sing and play an instrument. I'm like, dude, you're talented.
You won me over.
Yeah, seriously.
Caleb's big on that. Caleb is and you were talking about the different members of the group. Caleb is, I got to give you props, man, is one of the people that can really find a good song and know that, hey, this is Kevin here. Or, when Backstreet went without Kevin for his hiatus, it just wasn't the same. There are 5 members that come together to make the Backstreet sound.
Yeah, it's that 5-part harmony that just, there's no, it's just like when you hear like if everybody heard New Kids without John and Danny in the back, or like if you have a song where Donnie's missing, or if someone's, it's not the same. It's definitely a different, it's like a different band if you take away. I felt like BSB, when they toured with New Kids, I felt like they were a different group than they were otherwise. As much as everybody's like, oh, Kevin's significant. Kevin's a big part
when
of that.
He doesn't come out for his I Want It That Way part.
You feel it. Absolutely.
We feel crushed,
Yeah, it's like, where's Kevin?
And then like, even going back to New Kids, remix. Without Donnie in that song, there is no remix. That dude That's a fun song to watch.
That's my
live.
favorite. I mean, obviously, that song inspired the name of my company. Like that was one of those, like when we were trying to, yeah. I mean, when we were trying to name, because when I started putting it together, I actually had a different name that my LLC was under for a while, just because it was my old social media company that I was using as my side hustle. And I switched it over to this one because I was like, the remix, it just stood for so much. Like, first of all, that's one of my favorite New Kid songs of all time. Will forever be that song. I think it's because, like, I'm a huge Always Sunny fan. So seeing the music video, I was like, that for me was like one of those like defining, like, okay, this is pretty awesome that they did a music video with her. And just kind of knowing when we were naming it, I was like, this is a remix. It's my I tell everybody all the time, the success that I'm having now is my redemption for the failure. Like it was, I said this to everybody in my life. I was like, if I fail at this, I'm just going to work a corporate job and be done. Like, I'm not opening another business. I'm not, and I'm very fortunate. It didn't, knock on wood, we're having a great year, and I don't see it. I mean, it's a completely different experience this go round, but it was my remix. So that's why it was so important for me to do that.
Yeah. You have to fall to get back up again.
Yes.
Yep.
That's why people fall.
Yep. Exactly.
I mean, and now you're up. So just walk. Keep walking.
Yep. Gotta keep moving forward. That's the best you can do, right?
Caleb, that can be our name for season 2, is the Frickin' Frack Show starting the remix,
Ooh, but then we'd probably get sued by Andy.
Yeah.
I'm not suing anyone. Way too tired for copyright infringement.
What inspired you, Andy? What inspired you to do this, and what inspired you to go for Live Nation? What's your inspiration?
So it's funny because when everything, and I keep relating back to like when everything fell apart, because that was when everything truly came together. So when I went to Live Nation, the big inspiration for me was that I wanted to have a day job that I would be okay going to. And I was like, I have the experience, let's try it. But the reality was, even if I had gotten hired at Target at the time, I would have taken it, just because it was one of those opportunities where, everything kind of came into play at the right time. Even when I interviewed, I remember I interviewed for Live Nation. It was the day before Christmas Eve that year. And I was living in a hotel. And this is like, I don't think I've ever told this story on a podcast. So you guys are the first. I'm now that, like, I make the joke all the time, I'm very bougie. Like, I only use certain makeup. I only use, like, I'm very, I can be a little bit of like a brand, like, nerd, like, certain things, if it works for me, that's all I'm doing. So I remember I got the call to go do the job interview, and I was like, I don't have any makeup. I was like, it's all in storage, because we had thrown everything into a storage unit, and I didn't have my work clothes. I didn't have my makeup. So I went to the storage unit, and I was able to pull out, fortunately, I had laundry at the front of the unit. So I was able to pull out clothes, but I could not find my makeup. So I had to go and buy like cheap makeup, because I had no money aside from, we were living in a hotel. Like, this was no, like, we were about a week away from getting, because we, when you go homeless and you got to live in a hotel for 2 weeks, and I was very lucky at the time because my husband had actually he does real estate, and so he was able to get a commission just in time for us to move into a new place. Like, we were able to like find somebody to work with us, and we were able to like move, but we had to wait. So we're living in this hotel, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do my makeup. I'm going to go. This is going to be great. I had already done the phone interview, so they had already done. I'm like, but I'm going to look a hot mess. And it was so funny because I go into the interview. The other girl, it was a group interview. So those are always like extremely nerve-wracking, because it's you and the other people that you're up against, and you're in a group. The other girl didn't show up. Oh. And so it was just me. So I did a basic job interview, and they called me the next day. They called me on Christmas Eve that year and said, hey, you got the job. Can you start right after the holiday? I was like, yes, because I really wanted to do that. And I was like, okay. And so the funny part was I show up to work like 2 weeks later, full face of makeup, hair is done. And I remember my boss at the time, I remember he looked at me and he was like, I feel like you look different. I was like, yeah, let me explain. And so I told him the whole story because that was one of those moments where I'm like, you look so different when you like are just trying to make it work. And, you know, that was the inspiration, was just going broke. I needed a job and I had the experience to do it. But, you know, it was it was a blessing that it was at the right time with the right moment. And I had, you know, I didn't use like as much as, you know, I didn't use connections. I just literally gave him my resume and said, this is what I've done. But, you know, knowing that I would have just taken the job at Target, it could have been a different situation. I just needed the job to pay the bills. But Live Nation was good to me. I mean, my car, I remember the morning, it was literally the day that I was supposed to get my first paycheck from Live Nation, and my car got repossessed. And it was probably one of like my funniest laughing moments, because I was just waiting for my check to come from that first paycheck. And I walked outside and the car was gone. And I remember like I called my husband at the time and I was like, did you take the car somewhere? And he was like, no. And I was like, he was out for a run, and he's like, oh crap. And then it hit him. He's like, it had to have gotten, but he came home and I looked at him and I'm like, did you really leave for a run, knowing that it's the house, and go by that, and you didn't tell me the car was gone?
Oh man,
that's one of those things. I was just like, oh my gosh. I was like, then the worst part of the whole thing was that it was a Friday and the place closed at noon, and I had the money and I paid it, but I couldn't get my car, and we took lifts everywhere that weekend. I was still walking to the grocery store, but like, that car, when it got repossessed, I was like, and that's why this year, like, I made a big deal out of it when I bought like my brand new car this year, and everybody was like, why are you doing that? You know, I had like one of my cousins like sent me a snotty message, which is usual, it's family. And he was like, why are you doing it? I'm like, because you don't understand, when you've had a car repossessed, the ability to finally go in and finance your own vehicle because you fixed your credit and you did everything correctly. And, you know, the silver bullet is now here, and she's a wonderful vehicle. But even inspiration wise, like going on a deeper level, my parents are my biggest inspiration. And, you know, I lost them when I was young. Like my mom, I was 22 when my mom got diagnosed with cancer, and she was gone within 4 months. So it was the biggest, you know, I have siblings, but they're half siblings. So they never grew up with me. I'm close to a couple of them, but not the whole group. So I was the youngest, and I was by myself. Like I was my mother's only. So that was, you know, that ripped me apart, because she was my best friend and she was, you know, everything to me. And then my dad had a heart attack 4 months after mom had died. And I was only 23. So that was one of those like, holy cow, I'm on my own, you know, like, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's like that orphan feeling. And so everything I've done since, you know, even when like I messed up, I would ask myself, like, what would my mother think? My mother would have, first of all, my mother would have probably slapped me for some of the stuff that I did. But furthermore, I just really hope that everything that I'm doing now is what she had expected and wanted me to do, and, you know, had pushed me to do. And, you know, I know like I have nieces and nephews that look up to me, you know, and they're old enough now, they're all teenagers. So they're very well aware of the dumb crap that their aunt did. But they, you know, I want them to, you know, look up to me and know that, like, you know, my nieces and my nephews have all been to a New Kids show, and they've all been, you know, I've taken them to concerts, and they've gotten to see what I do for work, but I also want them to know what went into it. And so just knowing that they look up to me and they know that I've messed up and came back, I think that kind of keeps me honest. It keeps me on track. It keeps me, you know, I want them to know, like, it's okay to mess up and you can get back to it. So yeah, those are definitely the three inspirations: going broke, mom and dad, and a bunch of teenagers who, as much as they drive me crazy, they look up to me. So
oh man, I love it. I love it. That's a touching story, man. I know our fan base is feeling it right now. So thank you for.
Yeah, it was, it was tough with mom and dad. It was just one of those things where, you know, you kind of, it was meant to be. And I say that a lot of times. I'm like, you know, it was tough, and I made it through the funeral, and I made it through, you know, I had to, at the age of 23, I suddenly owned all my parents' property, had to sell my parents' property, had to, you know, bury both of them at the same time, had to go through all of that. And, you know, my grandparents, like my grandfather had owned a big business, and he he was the one who was like, okay, this is what you're going to do to start over. Suck it up. You're going to be fine. Like, and he was very old school. So I think that helped in a lot of ways. But, you know, I do relate it back a lot to, like, I think that's why Backstreet Boys for me are still so important in a lot of ways, because my mom and I were very, you know, like I said, she got me out of school for Millennium Tour. She was like, you know, she would always buy me the albums, and she would buy me the VHS tapes, and she would, you know, she tolerated a lot of it, and she was very grateful because she hated NSYNC that I was a Backstreet Boys fan.
That's awesome.
I don't know what it was. She told me that she thought that Justin Timberlake was weird. Like, something about it. She's like, I don't know if it's ramen noodle hair. And she was like, I don't know what it is. I just don't like them. And, you know, I look back on it and I laugh every single time I see it, because the ramen noodle hair comment cracks me up every time, because my mother was like, no.
Caleb and I have to ask you this, and then, you know, and then we'll let you get out of here. We're going on 2 hours and you're crushing it. You are crushing it.
She's like, I know.
What is, and we got to take Millennium out of this, okay? You can't choose Millennium.
Okay.
What is your favorite Backstreet Boy album besides Millennium?
Okay, so this one's tough because it's a tie. I love Black and Blue. I think that is, when you listen to some of the songs on it, because it was around the time when I was starting to think I was too cool for boy bands. So it was my actual last Backstreet Boys album that I owned for a very long time, because my mom, it was the last Backstreet Boy album that my mom had bought me. There are songs on there that I'm like, okay, you know, it kind of defines it. And like, then I look back and I'm like, DNA, as much as everybody might say like, oh, but it's the newer, it's legit. Like, I listen to some of those songs and I'm like, you know, take the you know, the actual singles out of the equation, but like some of the other songs on that album, I mean, they are just so good. Like, it's just that's why I think DNA, I know that people were torn if they liked it or not, because of the, you know, obviously the length and then the content of it. But if you listen to the album and you watch that show, like that album is who they are now. And I think that's why I love it so much, because I can look back on, you know, their first, you know, if you're a real Backstreet Boy fan, you know, there was that European album, then there was the first album, then there was, you know, you start going through the cycles. This was the one that I truly felt was honest, because obviously when you're dealing with record labels and things like that, it's not always the content that you want to put out. Like, I'm sure they didn't wake up one morning and say, we want to quit playing games with my heart, and we want to be half naked while we're doing it, and in the rain. We all know that was, you know, a combination of you know, Lou Pearlman / Jive Records / everything that went into it. But DNA, I mean, I gotta say that it's hard between that one and Black and Blue, though it's a pretty even tie.
Do you have a favorite song on it?
Millennium would still be number one, right?
Millennium's number one, and it's just because I think it's the nostalgia of it, because that was when I was in the thick of, like, I had AJ on my wall, which is really awkward, by the way, when you get to know him and you're like, you're on my wall. So awkward. But, you know, looking back on it, I think it was the nostalgia for Millennium, because, you know, TRL was still a thing. And boy bands were a thing, because it was like you were either 98 Degrees, O-Town, NSYNC, Backstreet. Like, you had to pick a boy band. You couldn't both of them. You had to pick one. And we had more, it was, you know, it was just like Christina versus Britney. You liked one or the other. It was all during that time. So I look back on it and I'm like, that was when it came out, I think I want to say it was my last year in middle school. So it was like, you know, 8th grade. And I was like I said, I was starting to get out of it, but then Millennium sucked me back in. And, you know, one of the things that I have been wanting to do for a while, I actually found a bunch of my mom's handwriting. Like, I found like a bunch of cards and stuff. And I'm actually going to get a tattoo done. Nobody knows this yet, but I've been contemplating. It's going to have part of the lyrics from The Perfect Fan behind it. And it has her. So yeah, I have that's my next tattoo that I want on my arm, and it's just my parents' handwriting and you know, and it was something that my mom, I'll have to put it on social once I get it, but the lyrics to The Perfect Fan are behind it, just because that was the one song that, you know, I actually played that song. That was one of the songs at their funeral. And so, you know, that song had like dual meaning for me. And I think that's why Millennium will always be top, but to answer your question about DNA, I think my favorite song on the album though is what is it? Passionate.
Oh,
yeah.
So good. I'm like, and you're listening to it, and it's so funny because like I know Nick as a person, and like I'm sure that there's Backstreet Boy fans who will disagree with me. I don't see Nick as a sex symbol. I see Nick as like my brother.
That's awesome. That's cool.
I'm sure there are girls who like want to fight me on that, but I think it's because I know him. I see him as like the brother type. Like and I know obviously like I was around when they did like all the promotion for Dead 7 and stuff. So like I know he's he's a little nerd like I am. And it is funny because you hear those songs where like he's trying to be sexy, and I'm like, if I don't have to look at him and he's like trying, I'm like, they're great because he does an amazing job. But watching him, I feel so awkward because I'm like, it's like watching my brother.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love him. I think Nick is so incredibly talented. Like his voice just, and I will say this. I mean, Nick is, even after like Nick and Knight and all the stuff that he, has done solo wise and everything else, I think Nick is definitely one of the most talented people that I've ever met. But, it's just hard to watch him air hump, I guess. It's hard to watch any of them when you know him. It's like, I could watch Jordan Knight all day and I'm like, this is great. But like, I can't. Like Danny, like we've made the joke before. I'm just like, it's hard to see them as anything other than what you know them, so it's difficult, but yeah, Passionate is a good song.
So good.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. 100%.
And Andy, what's coming up next for you before we let you go? What's coming up next? What do you got to promote? Tell us everything.
Sure. So the biggest thing for us obviously is we're coming up on season 2 of the Woodworks. Danny, it obviously when we started into this, we weren't sure how far we were going to take it, but I can assure everybody going forward that this isn't going away anytime soon. Like we get asked constantly if we're going to end it because of the pandemic. When the pandemic's over, are you going to end it? No, I'm going to be filming on the road. Like I already know what's going to happen. Like it's season 2 of the Woodworks. We actually start. I think the first episode of season 2 is the first week of April, if I'm not mistaken. It is the first week of April. So only a couple of weeks away, and just knowing we have more guests that are coming on, like we did, and just so everybody knows, we filmed it safely. It was all virtual guests at the moment, but we incorporated that. Like we're doing more fitness segments. We're doing more of Danny. Like we upgraded all of our equipment. We were actually originally filming it on like cell phones and one professional camera, and now we have professional cameras and professional. Like I keep telling everybody, I spent $200 on a ring light, like a legit ring light. Our audio upgrade, like we did everything over, so it's going to feel more like an actual TV show as opposed to just cooking segments, which is what we have been doing. We actually signed quite a few clients that we haven't announced yet that we've been working on, projects like Desmond Clark is actually one client we did announce, and he's a former NFL player for the Chicago Bears. Wow. So we've been working with him he's doing motivational speaking, and he's working with us on his social media and stuff. So it's definitely, it's going to be an adventure to see where we can take Desmond's, stuff. And then of course we still have clients that we've been working with forever. Like we are blessed enough to have the opportunity to bring, like we work with Kendall Schmidt from Big Time Rush. Like we've been working with Kendall the whole time. We work with Matthew Morrison from Glee. So, Matthew's one of my favorite people in the whole world.
Me too.
Yeah, he's amazing. Like for me, watching Glee and then getting able to work with Matthew has just been a dream come true. So, we're amping up for that. We're doing more events. We're doing, a combination of like, I've been doing a lot of consulting lately where we're doing a lot of hybrid events. So we're preparing for the world to kind of reopen the second half of this year and into 2022. And we're going to be doing live stream with live events. So it's going to be a combination of the two. But we're extremely busy. Like we're very fortunate. I'm very excited for season 2 of the Woodworks. And then we're already filming. I think we're actually starting to get into filming season 3 at the moment. So, we film once a month, and Danny has some exciting, obviously I can't tell everything Danny has coming up, but he has some exciting announcements that are going to be coming up as far as like, just new things that we're introducing. And just new content. That's going to be the biggest thing going into the rest of the year is just he's going to keep doing big things, and we're going to be doing more live streams, and it's just going to get bigger and better from here for sure.
That's amazing. That's how this show is going to do. It's getting bigger and better
Exactly.
every episode, and it's just, I mean,
you guys upgraded too. We just saw the first episode video compared to what you have now. So
yeah, we had a nice little upgrade, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Andy, we are so proud of you. I know I can speak for our entire fan base.
Yeah.
Be dang proud of yourself, because you have a story, and we are so glad that you came here to tell it. And thank you for that.
I'm glad I came on for sure. You guys, it was a great conversation. I hope, obviously I'm excited to see your second year and all of your success going forward.
Yeah. Anytime you want to team up, you just let us know, okay?
We'll talk.
Call my agent.
Yeah, which is Caleb.
Call your people. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
Call our people, which is Caleb. There you go.
People, which is me.
Yeah. All right, everybody, stick around for the last final minutes. Everybody say goodbye to Andy. We love you.
Thank you so much,
Appreciate
Andy.
you.
We'll see you soon, okay?
Bye. Have a great day, you guys.
Love you,
too.
Andy.
Bye.
All right, guys. You're watching the freaking Frack Show.
Podcast for the fans, by the fans.
What?
We love you guys.
Gotta go.
Woohoo! What a great episode, man.
Whoa.
Get to learn so much. Like,
Whoa.
bringing on people like this, it's incredible. It's such a huge honor just because I learned quite a lot about the industry. That's the most exciting thing, you know?
Man, she's got a story, bro. She's got a story, man.
We all do, man, but a lot of, we just don't have the platform to tell it. And that's why the frickin' Frack Show does what it does. I mean, we do what we do. It's it gives people a chance to reach out and come on a show, and I mean, it's just so cool to introduce people like that.
This is going to lead to so much. And you know what? And that's what we've said from the start. Let's branch out. Let's see what happens behind the scenes, right? And I'm glad they came with us. The people came with us for it. So
they stayed the whole time. That's the best part, man. 2 hours, by the way. 2 hours.
It doesn't feel like it though, right?
No, not at all, man.
I looked up and I was like, uh-oh, we held her for 2 hours.
She's like, I think she enjoyed the ride though.
So do I, man. So we're talking about giveaways, okay? Caleb and I talked before the show, and we got some wristbands and some CDs, and there it is.
Maybe CD.
Maybe we sign it. Frickin' Frack. I don't know.
Why not, man? Why not? I got a marker somewhere around here.
I'll virtually sign it. I'll docu-sign it. But yeah,
as you move, I move.
Yeah, and as you move,
one
I
squiggly
move.
line.
Yeah. So we're going to be doing some giveaways. We're going to do a couple for the supporters and a couple for, the fans. And what we're asking you guys right now, okay, and submit it to our inbox or send us an email. We have our business email that we'll have Caleb write into the comments. You guys can email that. We want you guys to create a video. Right, with us being the first year of the frickin' Frack Show, going on to the remix. We need you guys We need you guys to go ahead and create a video of how or what or when or why the frickin' Frack Show has helped or changed or helps you support get through a time, or what it's meant to you. Anything. Okay, and then we'll give it a number, and then Caleb has this cool little app that'll put all the numbers with the names on a wheel, and it'll spin. And then you'll get the drawing. We'll draw whoever's name that may be. Create a video. Just like that.
Email is posted in the comments. The frickin' Frack Show live@gmail.com.
I love that email too. Good job.
Yeah.
Create a video, guys.
Yes, it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be honestly really fun because I like giving away stuff.
You do a good job at it, man. The way you've always set them up is a really good job. So
I try, man. I try. Let me see. There you go.
there you go.
DNA.
So yeah. Even if you have the DNA copy, I still want you guys to engage in this activity and in this drawing because I think it'll be cool. And then we'll make a cool little video of everybody's videos and submissions, and we'll make a big one. So
Huge.
it'll be huge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So wristbands and CDs, and I have some DNA CDs that are unopened from the concert, and so we've all have wristbands, and we want to get that out to you guys. Okay, so do the drawing, please.
Yeah.
Caleb, who was this episode sponsored by, my guy?
All right, guys. So we have a little new sponsor for you guys, of the sponsor of the day or sponsor of the next few months. So we got St. Mary Golf and Country Club, guys, right here. There you have it. Improving your game one swing at a time. Bogey-free golf. Super, super awesome people, guys. They run a golf course here. Very, very nice people who run it, but also very, very clean grounds for those who like to go golfing. I would highly suggest you guys check them out just because they sell golf equipment. They're all about anything to do with golf, and you guys should just check them out if you're in the area.
I know I could sure use the help with my golf swing, Caleb.
Yeah, I could probably get lessons because I never swung a golf club before.
It's probably one of the hardest games I've ever played in my life.
I'm
not good. I'm not good, brother. So maybe when I come down and visit you, I'll swing down and we'll go
swing
check that
down,
out,
man.
Ooh, I saw what you did there.
Swing down. That pun that she did was better though.
Yeah, that was good, right? That was good.
Step by step.
Step by step. Well, we appreciate all you guys, man. Thank you so much for tuning in. And that was such a good episode. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about a lot of different people and behind the scenes of what happens. And thank you.
Looking forward to the future, man. Looking forward to the future. We got a lot planned. We got a lot of opportunities presented to us, and we're bringing it all to this.
Yep.
You know.
You got anything else, Caleb? Or
thank you guys so much for the support. Thank y'all for sticking out over 2 hours into the show with us. Like, it's been an amazing, amazing time with you guys. I hope y'all enjoyed Andi. You know, she's just a great person. She really is. You know, you want to talk about losing everything just to become bigger and better. You know, her story was really a testament to that. And we truly appreciate the 1 year celebration of the weekend, and guys, you know, let's make it another year. Let's get this party. You know, the party's just starting. You know.
Yep, we can't do it without you guys, so we need you to come along for the ride. You guys saw the next guest that'll be coming on in that video. If you missed it, we'll post it. But it is Greg from Dream Street. We'll be on here next Wednesday, and we're looking forward to that. So.
Yeah, a midweek special.
Yeah, at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. So whatever that means for whatever different time zones there are, Google it, whatever that is for you guys.
Oh yeah.
All right, guys. I got the Lincoln Sox first baseball game of the season to get to. Caleb, I know you're super busy. You've been busy all week and all weekend, so man, keep at it.
Bring Precious, get some ice cream.
All right, that's a good way to do a Saturday. We love all you guys. Thank you. This has been episode 34 of the freaking Frack Show, podcast for the fans, by the fans. Peace.
Bye, guys.